Welcome back to the channel, guys, and we are continuing with our new series, Getting in Mat Shape. Last week I did a lot of the explaining, and then this week we're just going to be going through the workouts. Remember, we cover 3 different sections. We cover flexibility, strength, and power. Today we're going to be focusing on the lower body. Let's get into it. So one thing that's a little bit different when you train the lower body is you want to make sure that you're doing what we call dynamic warm-ups as well as incorporating your flexibility. When you do dynamic warm-ups, you're going to be going through stretching ranges, but you're going to be going through them in more of a wide movement rather than holding the stretches. The reason why you're doing that is you're priming the body to go through these ranges at a faster pace, which we'll be doing later in the workout. So for example, lunges, monster walks, kicks, high knees, and those things are really good in the beginning to prime the legs, incorporating those flexibility things because we're moving the body through those ranges, but at the same time, we want to make sure that we're getting the body ready for the harder lifts and the harder movements that we're going to be doing later on. So like you guys saw, super dynamic. You can go back and pause it at any point. I left the numbers of how many reps and how long each one should take you at the bottom of each exercise. What you're going to do at the end of the workout is the second part of the flexibility. So when you work your legs, the difference is you really need to have your body primed for movement, and dynamic exercises do that job well. You're going to do the stretching part of it, which is I call the secondary flexibility, after you've actually completed your workout. So we're going to go straight from the dynamic into the strength and power portion. So let's get right into what we would do to work on and measure strength with the lower body. So as I spoke about in the previous video, strength and power are different. Strength is how much weight your body's capable of moving. Power is how fast you can move that weight in a measured amount of time. So the stronger you are, the more weight you'll be able to move. The more powerful you are, the more speed you'll be able to exert with that movement. So using the leg press again, like I did with the bench press as an example, if I can only press up, and I'm using one leg just to get it up, but if I can only press up 100 pounds, which this is, this would be what my strength is. I'm strong enough to lift 100, I'm not strong enough to lift a 105. But my power would be how quickly can I get this weight up off of the ground, which is way more important for how dynamic you need to be when you're training for tennis. So leg press is a good illustration of the difference between power and strength. The exercises we're going to be doing are going to be strength dependent, but they're going to be power training. So I'm going to be doing the leg press or squats or lunges or all these different exercises today, but the goal is going to be to then take that exercise, put it under a time constraint, and see if I can execute faster reps, even if it's at a lighter weight, because that's what's more specific to tennis. So the first exercise I'm going to be doing is a weighted lunge. I'm going to be using the 16-pound body bar. Pick a weight that's relative to you. If you need to use free weights or if you have a barbell, anything can work as long as you have something that you can increase over time. If you have to use your body weight to start, that is completely fine. Don't use any weight, but then eventually try to add 5, 10, 15 pounds to be able to control the stability through the actions. But all I'm going to do with this body bar is put it over my shoulder, so I have to keep my core tight, and I'm going to drop into a lunge where I'm not going to switch. If you're using a dumbbell, what you would do is you'd hold it in this position here, still forcing you to keep the core tight. But since I'm using a bar, I'm going to keep it in this position. You're going to drop down into a lunge position, get yourself pre-started here, and all you're doing is just standing up, dropping down, standing up, dropping down. You would do 8 to 10 reps of this, again with the goal of increasing your weight over time. Now, how we would measure power output with this would be one of 2 ways, and you can do this dependent on your level. This would be your decision to make. So for example, power output would be going from this lunge up into the air, which shows that I can still control this weight and exert enough force to drive off the ground. If you are not at that level of comfort, what you would do is you drop into that lunge, same thing. What you do is you step up with enough force to have your foot leave the floor. So if you look at me from the side, as I drop into that lunge, I'm pushing my leg hard enough that it comes off the ground And that means that I'm driving with enough speed and enough power to exert force into the ground to move my body in a dynamic way. Again, over time, this bar, which is only 20 pounds, could turn into the barbell, which is sitting over there, which is 45 pounds, but the mechanics of it aren't going to change. It's always going to be, start with the strength component of it. Can you move the weight comfortably? And then change it to, can you move the weight explosively? So that's exercise number one. Let's move on to exercise number two. So we've done our unilateral stuff, which is basically isolating one side of the body to focus on. Now we're going to do compound or bilateral stuff, which is incorporating multiple muscle groups at the same time. I'm going to be doing a squat. And as I said before, you want to measure and train your strength separate. So I'm going to pick up this barbell, which is 45 pounds. Obviously, if the weight is difficult for you, you wouldn't pick it up from the floor like this. But this isn't super challenging for me. So I would have this bar on my shoulders. And all I'm going to do is a conventional squat position, which is just going to be shoulder width apart. Try to have the toes pointing forward as much as comfortable. If you don't have the right hip flexibility, it is okay to turn your leg out as much as you need, but ideally you want to be toes forward. So all you're doing with the squat is just trying to keep the core tight, going down as much as you can and coming back up. Over time, same as everything else, we're going to be incorporating higher rep ranges, and we're going to be going for 8 to 10 usually, but then the goal is going to be, as we're done with the higher numbers, we're just going to increase the weight so we can still stick to that 8 to 10 range. So you guys saw that I did everything with the bar, but I have a couple of other pieces of equipment that are more effective depending on your level. So instead of putting the bar over your shoulders, you could pick the dumbbells and do the same thing if you have dumbbells available. Squatting is still the same. Only thing you're going to have to be aware of here is making sure you have enough shoulder stability to not strain your rotator cuff or your deltoid when you're squatting down, but the positions are still the same. If you don't have dumbbells, you could easily replace that with a resistance band, stand on it, and do the same exercise. Just pushing your legs up through those positions, doing it with the same engagement through the lower body. Try not to pick it up with the arms. Keep the core tight and just drive the legs up. And the last piece of equipment, if you're really in a good position, is to use the hex bar. Hex bar works the same way. It's the same weight as the barbell. Again, the barbell is the only thing that you're going to put over your shoulders. Everything else you're going to be supporting from the bottom. But the concept still remains the same. As long as you have one of these pieces of equipment available, you should be fine. If you don't have it available, just increase the rate at which you're doing exercises. So if you don't have any weights, squat using your body weight. Instead of doing 8 to 10, you would do 15 to 20. So switching from strength to power, the way we would measure our power output with this would be one of two ways. And again, base it on your own level of comfort. I, being a higher level athlete, would do the more difficult version, which would be more like a jump squat, kind of like we did with the first lunge. Just trying to get enough force up off the ground to leave the ground and come back down. And if you're not at that stage, what you're going to do, still trying to keep everything in a safe, controlled manner, is you're going to be squatting down and just trying to drive up as fast as you can and keep everything tight. So for the people who are more recreational or getting back into it physically, I recommend doing it this way. Again, pick a weight that's more comfortable for you. I'm only using a 20-pound bar for this one because, again, when you switch from strength to power, you definitely want to drop that weight a little bit until you're comfortable bringing it back up. So all you're doing is, for again, 8 to 10 reps, you're trying to go down controlled, but come up really quickly, or go down controlled and leave the ground. Either way, you're going for as much output as you can while still maintaining the same speed. If you're coming out of the gates going really fast, but by the end of your 8 to 10, you find yourself barely leaving the floor, that means that your power output is dropping throughout the set. And you want to try and get it to the point where you can maintain it for all 8 to 10 reps at the same intensity. So switching into phase 2 of the flexibility part, remember we did our dynamic part first, and now we're going to be doing our static part, which is part of our recovery and our conditioning or rehabilitation. we're gonna do a very, very deep lunge. I'm sitting on a bench that's about 1.5 feet off the ground, maybe a little taller. I'm gonna put my foot on here, which is gonna allow me to really drop my back leg really far. So by putting myself in this position here, I allow myself to really sit into a very deep lunge position. My goal is to try to get my knee as close to the floor as possible while still keeping my body upright. What ends up happening is you feel a big stretch through the core and the back quad, which is the leg that we've been working. We've been doing a lot of quad dominant stuff today. And then from there, lean back and allow your body to really stretch and relax. Then I'm going to do the same thing with the opposite leg. So I put my foot here, really drop that knee down, big stretch backwards, feel it from here all the way down through the leg, holding each one for about 15 to 20 seconds. I don't like super long stretching. I like reps of stretching. So 10 to 15 or 15 to 20 seconds, and then switching back and forth is going to be what I personally believe is more effective for this type of training. So again, just chest up nice and deep. Try to get that knee lower each time. And by switching back and forth, you can also kind of allow your body to reset. And the reset is actually probably the most important part, because the reset allows your body to feel like it's going into a range, not it's been in that range the whole time. Anybody can relax when they've been there for a while. Think of it the same way as when you get into a pool. If you got into a pool that's cold, give yourself 30, 40 seconds, the water doesn't feel that bad anymore. But if you're getting in and out and in and out, your body has to keep learning to adjust. And if you keep learning to adjust, tennis is an adjusting sport. Your body gets used to those different things that you're asking it to do. So the second one that we're gonna do, I'm just gonna grab this mat from over here. The second one that we're gonna do, based on your own level of flexibility, if you can't do something this high, that's okay. You're gonna wanna take your shoes off for this, just for not stressing out your ankles. You're gonna start in that same position, drop your knee down, drop yourself a few times, but then what we're gonna try and do is cross the leg and hold yourself up. This sucks. I am one of the least flexible people, but this is also one of the ones that I know is the most beneficial for tennis players, because it opens up the hip and it also stretches the IT band on the outside of the leg. Switching back between each one, you drop into that lunge first. Get that first initial stretch here. Then you allow your leg to fall down. Make sure you have something to support yourself so that you don't put unnecessary stress on the hip and the outside of the leg. Then you hold this position. I like this one because you can really isolate one leg at a time. The next exercise we're going to do is called the 90-90, which makes you kind of do both at the same time. But this one really helps you isolate what you can really lean into to kind of isolate the areas that are most comfortable or uncomfortable. So as I said, the 90-90 is going to be the last one we do. 90-90 just refers to the angle that you have both your legs at. 90 degrees here, 90 degrees here. So legs bent in this position, legs bent in this position. I'm actually terrible at this one, but I do it regularly because it's something that you should do. Most people have enough flexibility to kind of hold their body up. I don't. So keep yourself, be nice to yourself, and recognize that everybody has a different level of skill. Me, pretty strong, not the most flexible person. So what I do, because I'm not super flexible, is I'll support myself with this arm as I lean into this direction here, and I'll just push this leg down. If you have the flexibility, which you'll see people do, I'm just gonna ignore this leg, you'll see people hold themselves up in this position and just lean towards that leg. This leg would still be behind them. I said I can't do it. So they would just lean here, and then what they'll do, after a couple of leans in this direction, they'll just bring the knees around, and then they'll lean in the opposite direction here. You should feel this along the outside of the front leg and along the back here. This leg is going to be more on the inside of the hip, and then you just kind of flip back and forth, working each one. I am terrible at this one, but again, recognize the fact that it is a very important exercise to finish up with, because you've been doing a lot of stuff on the quads, inside of the hip flexor, and some really intense landing exercises. So that's going to wrap this up, guys. I hope that this was helpful for you. Again, we're going to be going through a cycle of upper body, lower body, core, and giving you guys a bunch of different things to pick and choose from so that you can build a flexibility training or build a strength or build a power training, and then get yourself primed and ready to get back on the court by the time your seasons start. But if you know anybody that would benefit from this stuff, please forward it off to them. But we will see you guys in the next one.